The first thing is, if it's your first property, you are exempt from certain taxes. If it's your second property, there are certain like loops that you need to kind of jump into when you're selling, but we're not going to talk about that right now. We're just going to be talking about the process of buying a property. So there are obviously different types of properties that you can buy. I'm going to talk about two. So the first one is called a freehold, and then the second one is called a sectional title or a sectional hold. So sectional title is when you buy a piece of property, either in a complex or in an estate, or not an estate, but in a complex that is shared communal living, right? So you own a property, but it forms part of a larger estate, and therefore you share things like your levies. You may hear people talk about levies. I'll talk to what that is in a minute. You'll talk about levies. You'll share common spaces, and generally you will have what the body corporate is the governing body of that estate. A body corporate is usually made up of homeowners, and the group of homeowners, depending on how many there are, then will have certain rights and certain obligations to maintain the group property, right? So all the houses. This is for sectional title. Sectional titles generally will have levies. Levies are the monies that you will pay for maintenance. So levies usually cover your insurance of the actual structure of the building. Usually will cover gardens, paving, all kinds of like shared facilities. If there's a swimming pool, if there's a tennis court, that's generally what your levies cover. For sectional title, the rule for most of the time is if you are going to take your wall, right, and cut it into half, the body corporate owns this side or is responsible of the outside of the property, and then you are responsible for anything inside. So you literally cut your wall in half, and you are responsible for anything inside, and they're responsible for anything outside. So things like walls, cracked walls. If it's a crack inside of the house, it's your crack. If it's a crack on the outside of the property, then it's built by body, and it's been built by body corporate, then you are liable for body corporate. So the reason why I didn't want to include estates into this is because generally estates, so like if it's just your house that you live in and it's very different to everybody else's, usually that's the tell.